What do they still need to like reasonably be able to remove? Like the only thing they really care about removing is like in-fight weak auras. Now I don't mean how long do these things have to get better until they can sufficiently replace them. I'm purely meaning the function. Like what are we missing? Oh, Omni CD. I feel like Omni CD will be built into the... Is that something that's just going to be a build out of the cooldown manager? I think. But true. Yeah, so like Omni CD for sure. Raid frames. Oh, just like raid frame overhaul. Actually, that's one thing there are people in our guild who use Blizzard raid frames. Now, having the ability to like whitelist and blacklist better, I think would be like something initially to go on, but I think that's something that's closer than you think. Not healers. Yeah, I think for healers, maybe they aren't good. But yeah, it can certainly be improved. Okay, now people are going to say weak auras in general. So like, what are the weak auras you care about? I think largely weak auras that are nice are the stuff for your UI. This stuff right here. Fired Up's entire thing that I'm mousing over right here. This thing is... All these weak auras is like, for most people, this is what weak auras are good. Cooldown Manager is attempting to be this. It currently isn't, but the changes they've announced for it, and I'm just going to give it a year of extra time. I think it's going to be pretty close. I'm not a developer, but this doesn't seem that hard to emulate from what it is currently on the PTR. Then it's like, what else do weak auras do? So weak auras, like right here, here's something a weak aura is doing. So here's what this weak aura is doing. This red thing right here, minus 18%, is showing that this guy is 18% below the average living mass health that's currently alive. This one is 26% HP above the average of the highest living mass alive, or the median, I guess. So it is showing the player, hey, if you're going to swap to any living mass, swap to this one because it's really high. Now, this is an example of something I think that just shouldn't be in the game. This is just going to get nuked and not something Blizzard needs to add into their UI. Same thing with like, actually, can we give Blizzard some credit here? In P2, I think when you are a viewer watching this boss and you see us do this, ready? Okay, we go over here. Gravity is going off and about to pause it. 3, 2, 1, now. This is 3 big blue circle debuffs and 17 little purple debuffs. The little purple debuffs, if they stack on each other, you'll most likely die to raid damage. And you have to get hit by this blue one or else you will die. We did not use a weak aura for this. I think in almost every single boss we've done with a mechanic even kind of like this, it is purely done with assignment weak auras and graphics and everything. Blizzard made this so these blue circles always go on ranged, one melee, and 1 healer. What that allowed us to do is all of the ranged DPS have preset spread positions here. All of the healers have preset spread positions here. And all of the melee have preset spread positions here. So you just always go to the same spot. And if anything, there's a few range spread out, so there's not too much stacking here. And they just know if they ever get the blue circle, they just have to go to the range pile. In my opinion, that is a brilliant way to design this to where you actually don't need a weak aura for something that looks like you would just want assignments. We even went into this boss with weak auras for this and ended up stopping using them because what they did in-game was better. That's a huge W. But what I'm saying is, if you were talking about things to remove from weak auras, it would be every time you get to a boss, here's what you should remove. Let's show fucking Fractalus real quick, right? Every single movement on Fractalus, a weak aura is telling you where to go. That is something that doesn't need to be emulated in Blizzard's UI. That should just not be the case, and they should design bosses that don't do that shit. So the real question I'm asking is, what is left? In my opinion, it's like buff and debuff tracking. So like looking at Fired Up's UI right here, having a couple, I'll give a couple examples. So these are offensive buffs that Fired Up cares about tracking, and defensive with mirror images. Now, I think that is just cooldown manager build out, right? Really good cooldown manager stuff here. And then you have debuffs that really matter. So let me see if I can find an example of this. I don't think there's going to be one on this fight, but there will be on Nexus King. All right, so when Fired Up gets this blaze, so he has an icon on his screen. This is actually, isn't this just a Blizzard private aura icon? I'm almost positive it is. It's just like the Blizzard private aura thing you can put anywhere on your screen. So maybe they already have a solution for this by just making all difficult debuffs like put into a private, but like, let's say it isn't, and he gets the dot instead. So right here, he gets the dot right here. Now he gets the dot, and he doesn't actually have a weak aura for it. He just looks at his debuffs. Okay, but like he has his debuffs filtered most likely. So like only the ones that really matter show up. So I just think some kind of debuff filtering, the oath stack is not necessary. But like some kind of debuff filtering where you just see the ones that matter, I think are really helpful. But I think that's just like a whitelist and blacklist thing. What is it? The dot is the circle around him. Yeah, that's a weak aura though. This is an example of something I think is not needed, correct? The big dot going off in 3 seconds. Like this is not needed in the game. However, if they were to build in some kind of like UI for that, like they kind of did on Halandris, right? Like Halandris, one of the best bosses ever, one big reason is when you were dropping off your bomb, it was entirely visual on when your bomb was going to explode, whether it was on you or on the ground, right? And in a way, isn't that extremely similar to what you were just watching? Like Fired Up getting that dot or whatever and then dropping, that circle counting down is basically just doing the Halandris thing, just with a weak aura. So what else do we actually need? What are things that help you in progression that Blizzard would need to build into their game? Okay, here's one. The note system. You guys have maybe implemented our version of this or Method Raid Tools version of this, but the ability to make timeline reminders like, hey, I'm pressing Mass Barrier at, he's actually doing it right now, at 1:15 into the fight, right here. So it counts down and lets him know to use Mass Barrier. Now, I don't know if this is one of those things that Blizzard actually said they are going to kill. I don't really know how I feel about this, if this is that bad for the game. Like, I feel like if you're doing like an impossibly hard 10-minute boss and you have some assignment 9 minutes and 20 seconds into it, I think it's probably okay that you get like a little reminder for that, but then it can just go super far. I think like text-to-speech is like heavily carrying people now. I think this is certainly borderline should get nuked for sure, but it's just like a personal reminder. And then you guys are saying like MRT notes for assignments. Well, most of those are assignments for actual weak auras, which would no longer exist. However, there are some that are nice. Is there going to be no kick weak auras anymore? Where like you don't have like a weak aura that, I mean, I can probably show you kick weak aura. So like right here, you can see it on this guy. So do you see how it says Sang 2 right there? That shows everyone else that it's Sang's kick. When it's Sang's kick, it will be a different color. So basically if you see green, actually I can probably show it to you. So Yips is the first kick. Does Fired Up ever get assigned? Yeah, it does. So Fired Up is now assigned to the 5th kick. So it's green and it plays a sound when it casts on the kick. Super sick, right? Is that needed? Nah. You could just like literally memorize it. Like you see phases like this so often, you could easily just memorize it. The kick notes are a big example of something that has been done for extremely minor levels of optimization. Just in general, that could easily be nuked. There are some bosses where it's a little bit more challenging. Like this is fucking piss. There's 10 people on one side and he casts really slow. There's some bosses, like maybe Ansurek, Brood Twister, no weak auras. Brood Twister without weak auras would have been insane. But another way to look at that is without weak auras, Brood Twister would have not looked like that. Or there'd be like, I don't know, we could have done Brood Twister without weak auras. It just would have been way harder. It just would have been way more wipes. Like what you do is you would have like the Brood Twister eggs and you'd have a raid spread like not a weak aura, like a raid spread assignment. And basically everyone is evenly spread out between the 4 things that need to happen. There's 4 raid markers on the things that have to be Venn diagrammed. And then simply, you just go to the one closest to you. If, let's say Nick, here, let me do a little raid plan. Just as an example, like, okay, would it have been insanely hard 100p? But like, it's not completely impossible, right? So if the 4 eggs you have to remove are like here, like 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you have raid markers down on them, and you have a raid spread, and I'm not going to do a full one just to save time. But like, let's say you have, you know, like 2 mages and a priest and a hunter around this one. And then there's 16 people. So let's say there's 4 people surrounding every single soak here. There's like 4 melee up here closer to the boss. There's, you know, some healers and stuff in the middle. You get it. There's 4 people around each. But just for the sake of making this easy to understand, I'll just show this back here. So you guys know there's a priority system. If all 4 of you get picked, you know that the hunter and priest are the highest priority, so they Venn diagram this. You know instantly that 2 people at least have to go to orange, so if you ever get 1, let's say, it doesn't matter who it is, let's say it's on the mage, this person says orange needs a backup. That means that one of these other 4 are going to have more than 2 people at them, and they know that orange is the one that needs help. If there's 2 that get it here, those 2 people, let's say it's the priest and the mage, Venn diagram here. If there's 3, it's everyone but the hunter. The priest and the mages have talked between themselves of if it's ever picked on us 2 and there's a backup, it's going to be this mage. I'm just going to mark him as a fire, just for example. I'm going to go back up. I'm also a speedy class. We don't want the priest to do that. So now this mage is going to be listening for someone to say, okay, triangle only has 1. Okay, backup triangle. Or maybe that's my call, right? And now the hunter's not even playing, so it doesn't matter. And then in this scenario, I've showed you 1, 2, and 3 in the scenario where you get 4. The priest and the hunter, the least mobile, know that they are the ones that stay, and then the 2 mages with blinks are now backing up, and they'll just have to see the 2 based on seeing it. Now, is this harder? Yes. Is it way harder? Yes. Is it killable? Also yes. You'd actually get used to this, and the way you'd make this consistent is you'd have the exact same people if you were to number these in a row coming from the where the boss powers up, or just away from the middle opposite. You'd have 1, you'd have 2, and then I'm not even going to mark them, but 3 and 4. And then every single egg pop, you would always know that these 4 people are doing the one farthest away from like the edge of the room here in each quadrant. So this is how you do Brood Twister with no weak auras. At least just top of my head, I'm pretty sure this is the most consistent way to do it. And I think you'd kill the boss plus however many pulls, double, no, like plus 20, 30 attempts, maybe more. But like you'd be able to do maybe one of the hardest weak aura bosses ever without weak auras. It would just be really, and then the lower down the guild ladder you go, this becomes something that's kind of feasible for the people who are the best at this and do it for a living, and becomes completely unreasonable for a 5th boss for people who don't play this game for a living. But as far as like, it's just certainly fun to do this and is possible. How about Fractal Assist here without weak auras? We did that on PTR. So on PTR, we were building our like strat for live from PTR. So on PTR, we natty called it, but had an order. So what I did on PTR is when walls came out, I said 1 star, 1 orange, 1 diamond, 1 triangle. 1 orange, 1 triangle, 1 moon, 1 square. And people just got their debuffs, did not get an assignment, and we just put 1 on each. And then I said for breaks, put 1 here, 2 here, 3 here. And we did natty call Fractalus and killed the boss on testing. It's more just, that's more like pretty much the only difficulty for that is on the raid leader, because you have more than enough time to actually figure that out. You actually have the debuffs for like a really long time before they go off. That being said, they would still need to change bosses for sure without weak auras, but not as bad as you think. Okay, huge tangent. My B. Echo of Neltharion without weak auras. Okay, interesting point. How would you do this without weak auras? P1, you just die. Unfortunately, it was just too fast, I think. Yeah, I think in P1, the solution is you just can't do it. You just wipe. That kind of sucks. I mean, you'd YOLO it and be able to kind of like, I mean, what you do maybe is very similar to Brood Twister. It just involves like kind of like pre-spreading. So go back to Dragonflight, go to Echo of Neltharion, and then the sides of the room here, let's just, for the sake of argument, just cut off one slice of the room here. Let's just say this is one thing you're playing in right here. So if the boss is here and you basically just spread around like this, and then you just go to the corner you're closest to and just vibe it out. And by being spread, because like how you played the fight with weak auras was everyone just stacked near the boss, so you were as close as possible to all potential spots, but that's not really possible without weak auras. So you would have to like pre-spread around and just hope that not these 5 people got it, and if you did, just fucking figure, like, just wipe probably. But maybe some pulls that wouldn't happen. Last phase was actually done without weak auras. We had like, famously, we had like a map here. I'll show the map. And they killed these map weak auras. These don't work anymore, but here we go. So this phase starts, and then this map comes out of where they're supposed to be. But like low-key, we wiped to this map a lot because, wait, why is Atlas not? Oh, there it is. Because these things were not... Oh my god, this was so OP, dude. No wonder they knew. This is so broken. It even showed where you were on the map, too. But we actually wiped to this a fair bit of pulls because if the boss is ever in, like, literally 1 inch of a different position here, it wouldn't spawn the exact right portals. And then the map would just be wrong. But I think the map definitely did help us. So, like, he knows to go... Like, look, we're fired up, knows where to soak, right? This can be like, okay, but just so you know how this works, only 1 person can be in each one of these things, and there's 20 of them. So fired up sees that his safe spot is over here. He blinks. He sees his character position. Dude, this is so broken. This is so good. Holy fuck, that is so good. Yeah, so... You get it. They needed to nerf this. How would you do this without it? So pings didn't exist at the time. They actually existed in the 0.5 patch of this this major patch here. But before that happened, after that happened, Dratnos' guild started doing this in farm by just pinging. Everyone just ping where they're going to go, and if there was ever 2 pings on one spot, 1 person just knew they had to move, which is not as good, but doable. Also, I believe Echo for a while was just like remembering where to go. Like, if the boss is in the exact same spot every time, you just kind of go to the same spot every time. The map just makes it, like, way more consistent. For everybody below the top 3 guilds in the world, that shit would be impossible. True. Another maybe bigger issue that Blizzard has with making fights more YOLOable and removing all of the crutches with weak auras and shit like that is because that's what weak auras are. They are a crutch. Just like good raid leading can be a crutch. Whatever, it can... There are just things that are available that can make it easier for the person in the raid to do their job. Good raid leading, really good weak auras, assignment stuff. The problem is those help the very best players less than they help average players. I mean, it's probably really simple to understand that, but like the less good you are, the more those tools carry you because the more you need them, because the more comfortable you are with living and doing as much damage as possible, the more cognitive load you can spend on everything else. Right? Now, if you are already struggling to live a boss that's killing you every global and doing as much damage as required at the same time, you're obviously going to be less prepared to deal with everything else that's happening. So I think an issue Blizzard might have with third-party add-on removal is it is going to increase the delta of the highest skill in the game and the average and the low, which is something they frequently try to address with class design in general. Like for example, losing weak ores is going to hurt us a lot less than a world 200 guild. And then below that as well.